Raise your hand. If you've ever succumbed unwillingly, raise your hand. There's something magical, almost universal, crazy, isn't it, about the power and magic of story. Every one of us lives a story, but too few of us revere the stories we're living. So my task today is to help us find the inspiration we need to tell our story, revere our story, and then offer a few tools that will help us tell that story the way it needs to be told. And I'd like to do it, of course, with a story. My wife was pregnant. Again. For the 8th time. We still don't have a TV in our bedroom. I'm glad you caught that. And we knew the routine. You go in, a couple days later you walk out with your heart stolen by that little thief lying in your arms. But this time was a little different. We headed in, the doctor, as they wheeled us in, the doctor said, "We realize it's 7 weeks early, but your baby's heart keeps dropping. So we're going to take the baby now." They sliced my wife open, took out this adorable little bundle who didn't make a sound. I rushed over to the bassinet and found a heartbeat. Good. She was still alive. And then counted 11 fingers and saw her angelic face. A beautiful face that was flawed by what the doctors would call a cleft lip and palate. It looked like a dog had reached up and chewed off half of her lip and cleft palate, and then spat it back out and stuck to the end of her nose. The doctor said, "Look, your little girl has trisomy 13. It means that every cell in her entire body has an extra copy of chromosome 13. She's not going to live. And if she does, she won't have any interaction with her environment. She won't walk, talk, crawl, make eye contact, giggle, or smile. So any reconstructive work you do is only to massage your own feelings." The first lesson with any story we have is that the story has a crisis. Look for it. In your lives, the story has a crisis. Look for it. Well, there was one doctor who said, "Layne, I just want to get her home with you so that you can have a day or two alive with your family before she dies." Well, in order to bring her home, we either had to feed her through a tube or in a tube in her stomach, which required surgery for the tube in her stomach. And we said, "No, we're looking at the long haul. We want the tube in the stomach." Doctor said, "No, you just need to get her home. That's my goal. What do you want?" I finally got to a point where I said, "What do I want? Do you really want to know? Let me tell you, I believe in a God in heaven. I believe in the goodness of people around me who are praying for our little girl. And I believe in our little girl. If she dies, she dies. But if she dies, I want it to be while we try to give her life." Second lesson. Our response defines the story. Trust it. Our response defines the story. Trust it. Against all fears and doubts that were flying in our face, we put photos of our little girl up on Facebook. And we started a blog. We started telling the story about pain and love and anger and faith. You know, we had no idea who it would reach. Turns out that there was a couple, friends of ours up in Utah. He wrote and said, "Layne, you may not know this, but our son has trisomy 21. I've been reading your posts and I've been crying and sobbing, thinking about my own little boy, and I wanted to hide under a rock and withdraw. But I found strength in your story. Thank you. Third principle. Every story weaves into another. Welcome it. Every story weaves into another. Welcome it. You know, just as a side note, our daughter lived 5.5 months. And that last week, she was sitting right there in our living room when my wife glided in, humming, and hearing her mother. Our little girl squeaked out a giggle, and her whole body smiled. She smiled. Every one of us lives a story, and we should revere the story that we're living. Because in the end, my friends, when life is stripped away and our bodies are laid to rest in a cold and silent grave, the people around us, they're not going to be singing and dancing, at least we hope. They'll be telling stories. Not our story, but our story within theirs. And if we have lived a life worthy of the telling and revere the story that we have lived, it will light a fire in the hearts of our family, friends, strangers even, and in generations to come, lighting in the fire in the hearts of those whose faltering steps need our stories to inspire their own daring journeys. And I think you'd agree, that's a story worth living. Madam Contest.